Okay, we good? What's happening, people, and welcome to In the End Zone UK Training Camp Live. My name's Dom, and you might recognize my voice from the NFL podcast that we've been putting out this last year. And if you don't know, get to know. Follow us on Instagram at In the End Zone UK. We're on Spotify, we're on Audible, we're on Apple Podcasts. Get on there, get downloaded and listening to the latest content that we're putting out for the NFL. For now, we're going back to the basics. Training camp is all about learning, all about discovering what the NFL has to offer. This In the End Zone training camp is going to be for those people who are brand new to the NFL or brand new to American football. We want to make sure that we give you all the details that you need to know to be able to watch a game of football. So many people that I talk to, viewers, listeners, people that have been listening to our podcast have said, I can't watch a full game of American football. I don't understand it. It's too long. This is where you need to know the rules. This is where you need to know the teams and the basics. Once you know those, a game of football is so exciting. One of the most exciting sports, if not the most exciting that I ever experienced. So what you want to do is start listening to our In the End Zone UK training camp. That's what we're doing for you today. We're going to take you through the fundamentals of the NFL. We're going to look at players. We're going to look at teams. We're going to look at the NFL overall. Most people don't actually understand that the NFL is a huge corporation split up of 32 teams into two separate leagues in themselves, the NFC and the AFC.
Hold up. Wait a minute. Something ain't right.
Did I say the NFC and the AFC? Yeah. Oh, got it right then. So me and my co-host, Big Dave, who is not here today, unfortunately, are very aware that American football is not the most talked about sport in the UK. It probably never will be. However, what we want to do is heighten the awareness. There is a big reason why American football is the biggest sport in America. It's watched by more people than basketball, baseball, and the most recent Super Bowl had a viewership of 208 million people worldwide. That is far more people than there are in the UK, about 4 times more. And there's a reason why people want to watch American football. It's so exciting and anything can change at any time. So let's get to it. Firstly, we're going to talk about the NFL in general. The NFL, the National Football League, was established in 1920. From then, it's expanded and expanded. It went from 14 teams to now a full NFL of 32 teams. That amount of teams has been split into 2 separate conferences. 1, the AFC, the American Football Conference, and 2, the NFC, the National Football Conference. Both of those conferences have got 16 teams in them, and they're split out even further into their own divisions. Each division is separated by a north, south, east, and a west. Bit crazy, I know, but it's the only way that they can do it in such a large continent that is North America. Now, in terms of the maths and how this works out between the 2 conferences, it's pretty easy, but again, we're going back to basics. We're talking about the fundamentals, so I'm going to break it down. 32 teams, split in half, 16 each. Those teams are then split into 4 different divisions, as I mentioned. We've got the North, South, East, and West, all part of 2 separate conferences. So in the NFC, you have an NFC North. In the AFC, you also have an AFC North. Those divisions are in themselves 4 teams that play against each other in mini leagues. That goes throughout the NFL, North, South, East, West. Never eat shredded wheat is how I was taught it at school. There's many other variations to that. Never eat soggy waffles is one as well, but that's a bit grim.
Never eat soggy waffles.
Stopping there. The NFL is split into 2 separate conferences, the AFC and the NFC. We're going to talk about the AFC first. The AFC is the American Football Conference. This was established in 1970, I believe. In 1970, the owners and managerial partners of the NFL joined together and they decided that they were going to split that conference up into 4 smaller divisions: North, South, East, West. When they did that, they were then able to locate those teams in certain areas. Teams that were playing out of the north of America were surprisingly put into the AFC North. And they did that all the way through. So when you look at the teams on a map, you can kind of get some sort of correlation as to where the teams are playing, depending on what division they're in. Within the AFC, there are some powerhouse teams in today's world. Some of the best teams coming up in the NFL are playing out of the AFC. In the AFC, you've got the Cincinnati Bengals. They made it to the Super Bowl this year. In the AFC, you have got the Kansas City Chiefs, who have constantly won over the last few years. Super Bowl after Super Bowl appearance after AFC title. But also, the AFC is home to dynasties of American football. We're talking the Pittsburgh Steelers, who have won a record-setting 6 Super Bowls within their entire timeline. The only team to challenge the Pittsburgh Steelers around that time, the New England Patriots, led by the GOAT, Tom Brady. 6 Super Bowls under Tom Brady for the New England Patriots makes the AFC an absolute tank of a conference. Over the last few years, it's not necessarily been the strongest. The NFC has pretty much taken the edge over the course of the last maybe 7 or 8 years. But it's definitely on the rise, and the AFC is charging forward with really young, talented, superb quarterbacks, as well as pretty strong teams to go alongside them. So that was the AFC. Now, the other conference, the NFC, the National Football Conference, is made up of exactly the same structure. North, South, East and West. 4 teams in each. The difference between the two is that the NFC is actually the more winningest, and yes, that is a word, winningest conference between the two. The NFC has won 29 Super Bowl titles, where the AFC has only won 27. So it's very, very close. But within the NFC, you have got some absolute astonishing teams. You've got the Green Bay Packers, a dynasty who have had Brett Favre and now Aaron Rodgers under the helm for the last 20 plus years. Those quarterbacks, one has gone to the Hall of Fame and the next one is guaranteed the Hall of Fame as well. Not only do you have the Green Bay Packers, but you have old school players, old school teams like the San Francisco 49ers, led by Joe Montana back in the 80s. You now have teams that are on the rise, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for being one, and that is due to Tom Brady again. Absolutely crazy. The guy needs to give it a rest or continue to win Super Bowls until he's about 75. So the NFC is also host to the current Super Bowl champions, the Los Angeles Rams. They have taken the league by storm in the last few years, led predominantly by an absolutely stifling defense, but there's also teams on the rise as well in the NFC. You've got the Seattle Seahawks, my beloved team, that have dominated the NFC for years upon years up until recently. They won a Super Bowl back in 2013 and thereafter have been competitive all the way through the last 10 years. The NFC is kind of maybe potentially far more superior than the AFC, in my opinion. Number one, because it now contains massive teams that are on the rise and huge dynasties that have also been passed, with teams like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Tom Brady, again. He's come back. And now, the Seattle Seahawks. They have dominated for the last 10 years. My beloved team have dominated for 10 years straight. Until this season. They traded Russell Wilson. Absolute killer. They will not be competitive for this year, but we've got so much to look forward to. Young players, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, that we can still build around. And that is the exciting thing about all American football. You always get that chance to build again and to go again. The NFL draft comes in and it gives teams time and chances to revitalise their teams, sign new players, get the new young players in from college. And that is the position that a lot of teams end up being in once they've had a good Super Bowl run. My team, the Seattle Seahawks, the jersey that I'm wearing right now, that's the position they're in. However, in the NFC, much like the AFC, there are teams that are ready to compete for a Super Bowl. The NFC is also home to the current Super Bowl champions, the Los Angeles Rams. They won this year against the AFC's winners, Cincinnati Bengals, and they dominated. They have smashed it. They are in the NFC West, which is the Seahawks division, which makes things even harder as a Seahawks fan. But you have to give the respect to the Los Angeles Rams. Winning a Super Bowl is not an easy feat. Amazing to see them doing that now after being one of the worst teams in the NFL only a few years ago. Now, you know about the divisions, you know about the conferences, and you know generally about the NFL. 2 conferences, NFC, AFC, 4 divisions, North, South, East, West. That's how both of them are split. We're now going to get into the interesting stuff. We're going to talk about NFL teams. So over the next few weeks, In the End Zone UK are going to break down individual NFL teams. This might help you if you've never watched a game of football before. If you've watched a few games and you don't know what teams to support, we will talk you through the pros, cons, kits, colours, locations, different styles of plays, best players, superstars, old legends for all of the NFL teams. And you can then make your decision as to who you want to follow. What we're going to do first, though, is talk about a specific division. We're going to pick a division, NFC or AFC, West, South, North, East, and we're going to talk about those 4 teams in that division. Okay then everyone, that was our introduction to Back to Basics Training Camp Live with In the End Zone UK. Really appreciate everyone that's watching at the moment. Really appreciate anyone that's taking the time to get to know football, to get to know the NFL a little bit better. We will do our best over the coming weeks to get you all the information and everything that you need to get up to speed to watch this season's NFL starting September 2022. So in the meantime, if you haven't already, please go on our website, our podcast, In the End Zone UK, at us at Instagram, follow us, tweet us, Facebook us, everything you want to do. The links are in the description below. Let us know what you want to hear more of. Next episode, we're going to be talking about the NFC West, Seattle Seahawks, Arizona Cardinals, LA Rams, and the San Francisco 49ers. Thanks a lot for listening. Stay safe. Peace.